Time to talk hoops. It is time to talk basketball. Here is Swish Williams coming through you with the NBA Daily Pick season record 37-25. We are over a 60% clip. We are in the red, and we are working with the whale tail model to follow the biggest bettors around. Whales haven't been chased like this since Ahab. So similar to our show on Thursday, I think we want to pick a game that has more of a relevant interest to basketball fans. Things, you just look at this docket, and one game, it looms larger than any others. I'm talking Los Angeles Clippers at Boston Celtics, 8:30 tip-off. We have the first ABC Saturday game of the year, and I could not be more excited. It's tough to have no football, but between Lakers Celtics on Saturday night and Royal Rumble Sunday, the weekend is taking care of us here. So in this one, the Lakers, they started 10-0 on the road. They dropped 2 straight. I mean, the 76ers one, that was a great game. They really fought. And then they really dropped a bad one to the Pistons, sans Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is appearing on the injury report. I expect him to play here. And I also think, looking across this landscape, that it's a little too easy to back the Lakers here, right? Pull up the spread on this one, Sammy. Look at this line, because you think, oh, the Lakers, they're the best team in the NBA. They're coming off 2 straight losses. This is a correction there. They will probably be 2-point favorites, huh? It's very easy to back the Lakers here. It's very easy to envision them winning one on the road, but I think we're going to go the other way. Think about the human psychology of this. You are a successful enterprise. You are having a rough business trip. You have it in your capabilities to correct and get back to being the sort of operation that you need to be. But when's the time for that correction? Is it on the fly heading into Boston with Anthony Davis coming off the mend? And, on the other side of the coin, Boston dropped a bad one in their last outing too. They fought back against the Spurs, and the Spurs proceeded to blow them out of the water in the last 2 minutes. So there is going to be a bad taste in their mouth. And I think there's going to be value whenever the Lakers play the Eastern contenders, just because a lot of the good teams in the East tend to have a bit more physicality among their premier players. So, I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're the sort of wings that, the Lakers don't really have any great matchups to defend those guys one-on-one. They've got great defenders, but Anthony Davis is going to be occupied with the likes of Daniel Tice and Tristan Thompson, a bunch of big bodies who are just going to try and body him. So the playbook for the Celtics is to really just go at Davis and wear him out, because Anthony Davis has a matchup against everyone. But if you throw a series of stronger, brawnier players at him, that kind of makes up for the walking mismatch that he tends to be. And of course, I'm going to watch this game with the question in my mind: is Jaylen Brown a better player than Jason Tatum? I'm going to watch how Jaylen Brown does in his matchups with LeBron James. I'm sure we're going to see plenty of them. But this is the sort of situation where Brad Stevens Celtics teams show their best. I'm a little worried that they're still working back in Kemba. I know that is a big ask in terms of their playing style and what they're going to do down the stretch when it matters in some of these games, but I like the Celtics here. I like the under here as well. So that will be our first pick of the game. All right. Second pick. I like the Sacramento Kings at the Miami Heat. They are getting 5.5 points. You can see this opened at, Kings +5. They're now Kings +4.5. And I know they're off a back-to-back, but I think the Kings have been pretty undervalued overall. I mean, if you look at that team, they've got 3 very good guards. Like, is it possible that 3 of the top 60 players in the NBA are in the Kings guard rotation? I think it might be. Hield, Fox, Halliburton, it sounds like my favorite Iraqi defense contractor law firm. But yeah, I think they're actually a good match against Miami, who is riddled with coronavirus and injuries at the moment. A lot of their best rotation pieces are still on the sideline. And if there's any team that's actually built to succeed on a back-to-back, it is Sacramento. They're so young. They've got plenty of young legs throughout the organization. And that 3-guard rotation that I mentioned kind of disperses usage. So no one has too much of a toll taken on them in any particular game. And granted, we did talk about this last show with the Clippers and Heat matchup, which we were right on. And even though Bam is proving himself to be a player capable of being able to carry the offense in the regular season, he did in the postseason. I will give you guys that. He's like pound the Bam player prop overs, but I do think that the Kings, again, they've got all types of big men to throw at him. Bagley matches up with his athleticism a little bit well. Hassan Whiteside is going to have some weird chip on his shoulder regarding what he perceives to be a Heat-Hassan rivalry. And like, come on, dog. If you are unwanted by the Miami Heat, that means you need to self-reflect and grow as a basketball player. But nonetheless, I love the Kings getting points here, even though it is on a back-to-back, because this is not the Miami Heat who went to the finals. They are having the season from hell, and it's not like they're back-to-back. They played the Raptors last night, but it's not like they came down from Canada. They just jetted over from Tampa. They were in the plane for 40 minutes, listening to their iPods, playing a little card. They're good to go. Let's go, Kings. Take the money line even if you want to. But for the purpose of our picks, again, 37 and 25 on the year, we're taking Kings plus 4.5. Okay, last pick. I got a couple speculative ones, but I like the Bulls over the Blazers. This is a game that favors the Bulls by 2 points, and we have documented the Blazers' just wide slate of injuries. You're going to have Nurkic out. You're going to have McCollum out. Maybe we'll see Robert Covington returning to action, but this opened at Blazers plus 1.5. It's moved to Bulls plus minus 2.5, and I like the Bulls here. The Bulls, as of today, January 30th, 2021, they last played on Monday. They got blown out, and they are not only a pissed off team, they are the most rested team in the NBA. So yeah, I'm going to expect them to bounce back against these injury-riddled Blazers. And not only that, I love my handle methodology. I look out across the vista, scanning the horizon for white caps of blowholes, and I see one, baby. There is a whale on this one. The public betting figures, the Chicago Bulls are receiving 36% of the bets, but 75% of the money. A difference of 39. We have a whale, my friends. Back that whale. A whale, of course, it means less than 40% of the bets, but more than 60% of the money. Those are the parameters I look for. And you know what? The Bulls meet them. They meet them from a basketball perspective, and apologies to Damian Lillard, but I think Chicago is going to win this one. All right. I got a couple other ones that I'm curious about. I'm going to discuss them in brief, but if you have any questions regarding today's NBA slate, now is the time. You can bring them up to me. Once again, Sam, what are our rules? Do you remember our rules, Sam? No Knicks. That's rule. What's our second rule, Sam? Our second rule on the show. First rule is, of course, we don't bet on the Knicks for or against. I just don't have the feel for them this year. I'm willing to admit it. Our second rule is we take the Phoenix Suns under every game. Tonight, the Suns are playing the Dallas Mavericks, and Let's pull up that over-under figure, and we see that over-under figure is 215.5. And why are we betting on that? Is that a good number? Sure. But we're betting on that because we bet on the Suns under every single time it's out there. Chris Paul loves leading the slowest pace offense in the NBA. Devin Booker's out, so you won't see a barrage of threes. And, if that weren't enough, Dallas is on a back-to-back. They've been playing and losing to Utah, it feels like, every night for a year. And now they're going to have to come and face a Phoenix Suns lineup that is just a little bigger, just a little tougher, just a little bit more well-managed. And I think that might be another hypothesis I'm looking at is teams that can play any style among the West middleweights. I'll put Clippers, Lakers, Denver at the top of the conference. But outside of that, Utah and Phoenix, I think, have more adaptable rotation. So against teams like, Dallas and Houston and Portland, I'm going to favor the teams that can go at you big, can go at you small, and can match anything you want to do via the versatility of their talent. So that's kind of something I think Phoenix fits the bill for. I think they're going to go on a run. And again, I don't think the record quite meets the talent level because they're incorporating a new pieces. Sorry, I misspoke. They're still incorporating Chris Paul. They're transitioning over to a pretty rigid offense, and Devin Booker has been struggling thus far. Still, this team is over 500. Still, I think they've got a great deal of talent moving forward. And if Monty Williams is able to carry the coaching equation, I like them for that. There was another back-to-back I liked tonight. It wasn't Denver at Utah. It was, I think it's in the Slack. Check your notes, Joel. Yes. Man, Pistons, Warriors. The Pistons. I talk about the way the Pistons are only 5.5-point favorites at the Warriors. The Warriors are coming off a bad loss against Phoenix, but that was a back-to-back. I don't see why Golden State should be only favored by 5.5 here. This is the 10 o'clock slot. It's now moved to 4.5. And yes, the Pistons, they're breaking my whale model. Every single night, I see Vegas insiders are backing the worst team in the NBA. So just according to my figures, according to how I chart these metrics, I see money from all over Atlantic City, all over Las Vegas, pouring in on the moribund Detroit Pistons and the Detroit Pistons Warriors under. Now, I'm not going to advise you guys to put on the Pistons on your betting line because I'm a Pistons fan and I know this team is trying to lose games. They are doing the same. They're doing the process correctly. They're giving these young players viable game reps, but there's a bit of trouble with leading your offense through Jeremy Grant and iso ball, with keeping Derrick Rose out of the game in long stretches in the fourth quarter when your team needs a bucket, in starting a point guard who's never played point guard. So even though my numbers, my model would suggest I take the Pistons pretty much every time out, I am just issuing a caution against that because I know a tanking team when I see them, and I don't see a Pistons tanking team right now. I see Cade Cunningham and Emoni Bates in this lineup come 2023. That's all I care about. Speaking of Cade Cunningham, I will throw out that I love the Oklahoma State under. I love Cal +10 in college hoops at all today. Those are straight from my model. And while we're talking about this, while we're talking about back-to-backs, keep an eye on Rockets Pelicans. Aren't the Rockets playing really well right now? Aren't they sort of coming together as a team? Aren't the Pelicans the sort of team who would be patting themselves on the back after a great win against Milwaukee last night and then just not see them coming? Yeah, I think so. So I'm not going to make it one of my picks today, but if I had to do more, I would be back in Houston in this one. I like how this roster's coming together. I like how Oladipo and John Wall are playing together. And I like New Orleans to be self-congratulatory and not be prepared to play a game that isn't on national television against a team that won't lead to widespread ESPN and widespread media attention. So yeah, the Pelicans are not a well-run franchise. And again, we like the Rockets. The Rockets are a good basketball team, and they make me feel a sense of karma and attachment to them. And I get the sense that they're doing things right for the first time since Hakeem was donning the goggles in H-Town. I'm pontificating. I am going off the rails with, okay. Oh, James Wiseman getting a double at plus 800. Thank you, Carson, for the question. Let's pull up the James Wiseman game log. I'm worried because they've been messing around with his minutes, right? I like Wiseman a lot. I think he's by far the best player in this NBA draft class, but they've still sort of been jerking around his minutes, even though he is not quite there. And I'm going to say no on this one. Total rebounds, only 6 per game. And if I'm to pull up his game log, I see that, I don't know, hasn't hit that recently. He didn't hit that. He hasn't hit that mark since January 3rd. So that's the last time that bet would have hit. I don't blame you for maybe wanting to take a flyer on that against Detroit, but there's a lot of real big red flags coming out of the water in that Golden State Detroit matchup. I also think just keep an eye out on player props against Detroit, because every once in a while, every 4 or 5 years, a player comes into the NBA who just cares about rebounding. And a lot of times that player ends up on the Pistons, and the Pistons have that guy now, Beefy Stu, Isaiah Stewart, center from New York City, but originally a Washington Husky. He plays a lot of minutes for Detroit, and all he cares about is his rebounds. I've seen him tearing them away from his own teammates. So I don't really think I want to put money on James Wiseman to just go off board-wise against his biggest competition from this rookie class in terms of rebounding. Like, Isaiah Stewart is just staring at a picture of James Wiseman outside the Chase Bank Arena right now, muttering to himself about how that motherfucker ain't getting any rebounds tonight. And that's the sort of player I want playing center for the Detroit Pistons. You remind me of Ben Wallace. You remind me of Rick Mahorn. So, yes, welcome to Detroit, Isaiah Stewart. Man, I'm passionate about him. Thoughts? Giannis over 11.5 rebounds, minus 105, has gotten 13 plus in 6 of his last 7 games against Charlotte. I'm going to go with no on that one because of the back-to-back, right? They really worked hard to come back last night against New Orleans. That was a second half push that Giannis was a big part of. And I know that the Hornets don't really have an athletic answer to Giannis, and he might be able to go crazy on the boards. But don't you think there's a chance of a blowout here? Isn't there a decent chance? Like, both these teams played last night. I think Milwaukee's going to be pissed off. There's all sorts of money on Milwaukee tonight. Like, I think I saw 98% of the money on them. So assuming the whales are right, I think you might see Giannis sit the fourth quarter. So I would sit this bet out. And yeah, we're having fun. Carson Kroll, he's talking trash about Bumley. But hey, sometimes you need a high effort guy to kick up the rebuild. A guy who's going to have the presence of mind to be on a playoff game, but he's also not going to be able to make key rotations in the playoffs. That's the sort of guy you want to have when you're stealing the Sixers process, and that's what Troy Weaver is doing in Detroit. Oh, God, all my teams are tanking right now. It's so depressing. I told myself I'd start rooting for the Nets again, and then they traded for James Harden, got rid of Karis LeVert, and my favorite guy, Jared Allen. It's tough to be a Detroit fan. Well, I had a great time with you guys today. I will be back tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's a limited slate. I mean, I won't be picking the Clippers and Knicks game tomorrow, but because of my rules, no Knicks, Suns under every time. I wouldn't be picking them anyway, so we won't be missing out on much. Well, until next time, if you're bored, check out the Props Network, subscribe to our page. We're doing great stuff all the time, and I love talking basketball. I think there's 5 of my favorite basketball minds on this channel, and I know some of the big ones. Bleacher Report, Nike Basketball, those guys are all in my social circle, but I will put my Props Network bros up against anyone. And yeah, once it warms up next week, you can catch me on the courts in New York City. We can play for bankroll, and then we'll just back the model and we'll put it all out there, tracking the whales, bringing it back home. So in conclusion, tonight I like Boston. I like the Boston Lakers under. I like the Kings. I like the Bulls. And I like the unders in Rockets Pelicans as well. Well, that's it for me. I had a great time for the Props Network. This is Joel Walkowski walking off.